Hi class, today I'm going to show you how to make color separations so you can print your films. So a color separation is basically that. You're separating out the colors into separate layers so you can print your silkscreen. Alright, you can work from a photograph, you can work from an Illustrator illustration, you can scan a drawing you've done, however you want to do it. It's fine, there's different ways. I'm going to show you a couple of them. So this is just a little silly illustration I did in Illustrator in 5 minutes just to show you as an example how you would turn this into silkscreen separations. You could also do this in Illustrator, but I like doing it in Photoshop. Everyone has their own habits and preferences, and to me I like it because it has it in layers in just a very similar way to how you silkscreen. You can order the layers. It makes sense to me. And also because when we print out the separations from Ayesh's printer, we have to do that from Photoshop. So to me, it just kind of makes sense to stay in the same sort of program. But you can do it as you like, of course. All right. So first, I want to do my image sizing. I would say do this before you ever do anything ever. To your separations. Make sure it's 300 DPI, which is dots, pixels, dots or pixels, the same thing, per inch. Okay, not centimeters. Do not do centimeters. This is whenever something is going really weird and wonky, that's probably why, because you probably accidentally chose centimeters, so it should be inch. You can do centimeters though for your sizing. That's no problem. So this seems like a good size to me. Let's make it a little smaller, I guess. All right, now we're going to make our layers. There's multiple ways to do this, and this is just the way that, to me, seems the easiest, so that's why I'm going to do it this way. Okay, magic wand tool, and make sure that contiguous is not checked. See, if you click it, you're going to highlight everything that's red in the picture, but if you do have contiguous checked, it's only going to highlight what is touching, because the word contiguous means touching, okay? So we don't want contiguous checked. That way it's going to do all the red. So we're just going to copy paste. So I just did Command C, Command V. And now we have a new layer that's just the red. Okay, going back to layer 1. Copy paste. And as you can see, now we have just the yellow separated. Going back to layer 1. Now we're doing the stars. Copy paste. And as you can see, the stars are by themselves. So what we now need to do is turn them all black. Okay. Before we turn them all black, there's something that I want to do. And that is, imagine how annoying it's going to be when you go to print and you have to get the layers of the stars and the star holes to line up exactly. That's going to be really tricky. So it's better just to have this be solid yellow that you then print the stars onto. So we can use the bucket tool for that, or the brush tool, however you want to do it. Make sure you're in the right layer. Okay, I can see kind of little weird outlines, so that's why sometimes the brush tool is a little better. I like to have the edges be all the way hard so you don't get weird feathering happen somewhere where you don't know about. Okay, so now you can see what it would look like when you print your star layers on top. Now, imagine you get your registration a tiny bit off and the stars are a little off. It doesn't really matter that much because you got rid of the holes. So therefore, if it doesn't line up perfectly, no one can tell the difference. So make it easy on yourself, right? Try to make your registration as simple as possible by filling in gaps and holes like that. And you can always test and check to see how it's going to work by just making layers visible and invisible as needed. Okay, so now we're going to turn them into all black. So you can do a color overlay, but in this case, it's kind of probably easier just to do a paint bucket. Oh, let's get rid of contiguous. There we go. Make sure you're in the right layer. Okay, so as you can see, all your layers are separated out and they're black. So you can just copy and paste them into your new file. So now we need to make a file that we're going to use for all of our separations to actually print. So we're going to make a new file, a new document, and we need it to be 300 dpi, and it needs to be 105, sorry, not inches, centimeters wide, because that's the width of the roll, but it can be as long as you want. Let's just do 100 because we can always trim it down later. And there's no need, I guess, to have any color because we're printing it black and white. Okay. So basically now, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. So we don't want to waste any of this film, so we can actually arrange it like this so that other students can put their work here, and then we have plenty of room. We can just trim it like here or however far it gets down, and then we're not wasting any film. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to work from a photograph in kind of an Andy Warhol type way. Again, there are different ways you could do this. You could open it in Illustrator and do image trace or pen tool, but I'm just going to show you kind of a more quick and easy version in Photoshop. So I've opened up my image, and the first thing that I want to do is to make sure the size is correct before I do anything. Always do this first because sometimes when you've done something to it, like adding a halftone at the wrong size, then the dots are going to be the wrong size, and so you really just have to make sure that the sizing is correct up front. Okay, so if we make this 300 dpi, then this is our size for this one, and I might make it a little bigger. Okay. And of course, it's better if you start with a higher res photo, but with what we're doing, especially if you're using a bitmap, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Now, I want to get rid of the background. So to do that, I'm going to highlight the parrot. I like to use the quick selection tool because you can just sort of select the whole thing. Let's make it a little bigger. Now, as you can see, I went over in some parts, so you can also make it negative up here, and you can subtract out the parts you don't want. Okay, and then back to positive again. And I'm going to have to negative this part too. I'll do that at the end. Yeah, let's do it right now, actually. We need to make it smaller so we can get the details better. Like that, see? And now you want to get the toes, so let's go back to positive. Okay. So we're just going to delete the background for this. I mean, it's up to you if you want to use backgrounds or not. To do that, first of all, I'm going to unlock the layer, and then I'm going to go to select, inverse, so the background's highlighted, and then I'm going to edit clear. Okay. All right. So we'll keep this layer 0 as like the guide, just call it like original or something. And then we're going to copy the parrot and paste it. Okay, into a new layer. Let's go back to the background, and then we're going to start a new layer, which we'll call the background. And we're just going to fill it with a color, background color. So let's say I want to use green. We'll have a background that's green. And there are other ways you can fix this up, but you can just also just draw on it. Like we could go back in and fix the selection as well. This works too. Okay, so now we have a background layer. That's gonna look like that when it prints. And now we're gonna take other layers. So this time, let's go back to the quick selection tool and let's get the beak. I'll make sure you're in the right layer. Okay, I'm going to copy this and paste it into its own layer. Okay, so that's the beak layer. Let's do the yellow, and then we'll do a black layer. Actually, you know what? I think what we'll do for the black layer, like for the eyes and the feet, is we'll include that as part of a kind of top layer that has a halftone. Yeah, I think that'll work the best. So we just want this yellow layer, but it's going to include the eyeball, right? Okay, copy and paste. Okay, and I'll just call this one yellow. So that looks like that. And so we're just going to see what it's going to look like when we color it with the color, and we're going to choose yellow. So you can play around and see, what kind of yellow, what's going to work best for you. And then you can do the beak color. So go to FX color overlay. I like this better than using the bucket tool because the bucket tool can have weird edges, and if the image is a photograph, it's not perfectly flat, so it won't fill right. So we're gonna pick a gray. Let's do more like a bluey gray. Yeah, okay. So that's what that would look like, and you can always, gonna go in and fix it up with the brush tool. And this is why maybe you can also use Illustrator if you want more like a sharp edge. But I like kind of the hand drawn kind of natural look. Sometimes people just draw straight with the paintbrush tool as well to get the kind of hand painted effect, but it's really up to you. There's so many different ways. So this is what it's going to look like when it's screen printed. Okay, as you can see, there's some gaps. Let's put the background underneath because it should be kind of printed first. Okay, so now we're going to go into the beak, and we're going to select that area. And let's expand it by going into Select, Modify, Expand. And I'm going to let's try 3 pixels. And if you go in, you'll see that it's a little bigger now, so it'll cover up any gaps. And we'll just paint bucket it in. There's a little gap here. Okay. So let's put it back. Still a little gap in here. Okay, so now that's kind of like what's going to look like when it's painted. I'm going to want to fix up in the background this. Okay, and we'll do it here as well. I'm going to go into the original layer and just select only the blue stuff. Okay, so let's get rid of the beak. And the feet. And let's get rid of this yellow because I think if you try to print yellow on top of blue, it doesn't show that well. Okay. Copy and paste to another layer. And in here, we're going to color overlay it with blue. So you can see this is what it would look like. And again, you can kind of fix it up. Oh, let's get rid of the original. Okay, again, we need to expand it a little bit. Let's get in the correct layer. Okay. Modify, expand. Okay. Okay, so when you're happy with it, again, you can also keep going and get it perfect and everything, or go in with a brush, etc. But we'll just stop here because it's enough already. And now we're going to add on our last layer, which is our black layer. Okay, I'm going to go back to the original, copy it, and okay. Let's just get rid of these kind of messy bits. Okay, so now I need to make it grayscale. It has to be grayscale in order to turn it into a bitmap. I also just want to check the image size. That's 300, okay? Because again, if you change the dots at the wrong DPI, then they're not going to work when you change them back to the real DPI. The dots will be too small or too big. So the next thing we have to do is levels, adjustments, and make it more high contrast. So you can really see the shapes and stuff. Okay, so you want some good darks, you want some good lights, and you want a range of grays. So you can play with that till you're happy. Now you're going to go into mode, bitmap. So you want the input to match the output, and you want it to say halftone screen. This is easy to remember because you're doing screen printing, therefore you need the screen. Okay, for the frequency, it can be a range of different numbers. The angle, keep it the same at 22.5. It really doesn't matter too much, but this is like a traditional angle they like to use, so just you can use it. And you can change the shape to whatever you want, but I like round personally. So the frequency basically is the number of dots that fit into an inch. And basically, the higher the number, that means the dots are smaller because more can fit. So you don't really want to go above the number 27, and that has to do with the size of the mesh. And if the dots are too small, they're going to fall through the mesh and you're going to lose your details. So you get an image like this, okay? You can't really get it any more fine than that. But if you go to bitmap and keep playing around, we can experiment. You know, you can do like 15, get dots like that. Like that's kind of fun. You can even do 5 or 4 or 3, you know, just play around. So when we're happy with it, we're going to copy it. And then we're going to paste it. So let's put it on the top. Get rid of the original. And we're also going to magic wand tool this. And let's get rid of contiguous. Get rid of all the spaces between the dots. So it's just the dots. Oops. Make sure you're in the right layer. So that's basically what it's going to look like when you go to make your silk screen. Okay? So if you're happy with it, what you do then is you have to turn these all into black. If you're happy with this, then what you have to do is turn all your layers black and then copy and paste them into the other document. So go back to this document here, drag it up there. And so we gotta do that now with all the other layers. Let's do one at a time. Color overlay, let's go to black again. Copy, paste. Let's turn it black. Copy, paste. Turn it black. I like doing this and not the paint bucket because the paint bucket can mess with your edges. Copy, paste. Okay, just something I've noticed that if you just do, you're in this layer, you hit copy and you hit paste, it's gonna be black. But if you're in this layer and you hit select all and then copy, paste, it comes out gray. Okay, so I don't know why it does that, that's weird. But anyway, so when you're copying them, don't have it selected, okay? Copy, paste. Right, so then these will be your layers for your silkscreen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you only have to do 4, but of course I think some of you will probably end up doing more just so you can get the colors and the effects that you really want.